Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to today's conversation on Gift of Healing TV. I'm Sara Jane, and this evening we haven't got Patricia, bless her. She's not 100% after having had a couple of teeth out today, so we hope that she's better soon. But we do have her husband, Bill Kerins. So, Bill, thank you for joining us in Patricia's place.
It's a great pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
That's all right. And we are delighted to welcome Shirley Battie to the programme. Shirley, you and I, we've connected a number of times over a number of years, haven't we? We both live in sort of the Bournemouth area. So Shirley, thank you so much for joining us for the programme this evening.
Well, thank you for inviting me. You know, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Now, the topic of our programme this evening is Journey of the Soul. Now, Shirley, we always ask our guests to choose the topic. So please share a little about yourself and why this particular topic is so important to you.
Well, the topic is important because the soul is the most important thing that we can ever focus on. Irrespective of all the other stuff that goes on around, your soul is the most important thing because it goes on forever for a start. So whatever happens in your life, I would say, make sure you behave in the way that benefits your soul growth. Don't do anything you would dislike yourself for, because it all helps. So that's why the subject is important. And of course, the soul starts from source, and its objective is to go back to source. It's inbuilt by default. It wants to go back to source, which is why each and every person, no matter whether they're religious, spiritual, or whatever, or don't care, there's a drive inside them to do this or to do that, whatever that drive is. And it's the soul's drive to advance in some way or the other. Does that help? Does that answer your question?
But do share a little about yourself.
Oh, all right, yes. well, I'm on my way out now, actually, but I've been around for a while. I've been driven by spirit since the age of 54, knowingly. I mean, I was driven before, but I didn't know. So the minute I meditated, the very first time I meditated, I had connection. But it was all about the planet. It wasn't about me. My meditations are still not about me. They're always about everybody else or the planet. Solid. I need somebody else to tell me about me, but I don't get it for myself as a rule. So my connections with meditation have taken me abroad, many countries. I've done readings and workshops pretty much globally. Not Japan. I've been to Japan, but I haven't done any work in Japan. But you name almost any country, and I've been there and I've worked there. I couldn't afford to go there otherwise, because I generally get paid to be there. I've written 9 books, and people keep telling me I've got another one to write. Well, I've started, but whether I will finish is another matter. I do workshops, many kinds of workshops, and that is still going to be ongoing, I rather think. I give readings. What else do you want to know? I don't know what else there is. I channel, and that isn't finishing apparently. So I just keep busy, basically. I mean, I've been to work like everybody else, earned a living, but my real busy side started when I retired, because then I had time. No money, but time. When you're at work, you've got the money, but you don't have the time. So I was free once I retired to travel.
So can I ask you, what did you do then before you retired? I mean, what was your work?
What was my work? Now, that's a big question, Bill, because I've been a technical editor for helicopter manuals, working with Italian aeronautical engineers. You didn't expect that, did you?
I wasn't expecting that one.
I've done ordinary everyday administrative jobs, office work, that sort of thing. Teaching English as foreign language in Italy. I did a lot of work in Italy. But that was interesting because I found myself connect with nuclear physicists, teaching them English. I had a wonderful time. I really had a wonderful time with them. They were great fun. And teaching doctors in a hospital, not medicine, but teaching them English.
Yeah.
So I've had a very interesting time, really.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that I was an aircraft engineer at one time as well.
Oh.
That was one of my previous incarnations, as they say.
I think that's just it, isn't it? Sort of people may listen to some of the programs that we do and think, great, they've got to the level they've got to. But we've had normal lives, what people call normal lives.
Yeah.
Most of us, before we've even started where we are now.
Yeah.
And it's important to realize that. But that's all part and parcel of the journey of our soul, isn't it?
Yeah.
To have those normal lives that give us experiences.
Yeah.
So all the travel, Shirley, that you did prior to starting the work the universe wished you to do gave you that, so you knew what you were doing when it came to traveling.
Well, what they told me, actually, because I've been divorced twice. I divorced twice. But anyway, that's beside the point. Once that was all clear, and I was back in England, starting life all over again, Spirit said to me, that was when I first meditated, and they said, we are using you now because you no longer have family commitments. You see what I'm saying? I had to deal with the everyday business of looking after my mum, bringing up the kids, going through divorces, and ordinary everyday jobs. Once I've dealt with all of that, then they could work with me because I was free.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, speak to me, they don't like my job. It's not very spiritual and I don't like the energy there. And I say, look, if you are evolved enough, you take your spirituality into the workplace because that's where it's needed. They say, I want to give up my job. No, take your spirituality into the workplace. That is where it's needed.
Yeah.
It's like loving. People, it's easy to love people who are lovable, but it's the unlovable that need your love. It's the same thing. You take your love where it's needed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people in my world, people were mixing up religion and spirituality. So they'd ask the question, are you a religious person? I'd say, well, I'm not a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person, which means to me that it's a 7-day thing, not a Sunday morning going to church thing. Again, your spirituality has to be a 7-day thing in what you do and how you approach everything you do. If you try to approach it at least from a spiritual point of view, I think there's more learning in that. To me that's what we're here for. I believe that's what we're here for is for us to learn. And it isn't about learning. It isn't about learning a language or learning a skill. It's about learning more about ourselves, our journey, as you call it, your journey. And I think that's what makes it, to me, it makes it a lot more interesting than I've got to do a 9 to 5, and when I get to 65 or 70 or 80, I'll die, and that's the end of it. It's, to me, that would be very boring life to live.
Yeah. But religion has started more wars than anything else because of the differences between them and the sticking fast to one idea.
Yeah.
And it's a pity.
Yeah.
Because there's different routes to being spiritual. It doesn't have to be this religion or that religion.
Yeah. Yes, true. And so the same thing applies when people say to me, well, what does spirituality mean to you? What it means to me is what it means to me. I can't explain that to somebody else and say, this is what you should be like or do to be spiritual, because everyone has their own journey to make and to do it that way, to do it in their own way, whether it's caring for someone or traveling or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's your journey. Yeah.
Some of the most spiritual, beautiful people I know are not religious at all.
Yeah.
Wouldn't go near a church, but that doesn't make them
Yeah.
less spiritual. Wouldn't you agree, Sarah?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I know I was raised as a Catholic, and I very much believe in our Creator as the term and source. Great mystery. I love that term. I don't tend to use the word God these days. I very much believe in Mother Mary, in Jesus, the angel, but I believe in dragons.
Yeah.
And that's so much more than modern day and even ancient religions. And until you go back to obviously sort of like Wicca, etc. So you go back to the really ancient religions before the Romans came here and whatever, sort of there is so much more. And nature should be our part of our religion, taking care of our planet and each other and the wildlife. Religion shouldn't just be about what is taught within a church, a mosque, or a synagogue, or whatever. It's that freedom to what feels right for you. And it's that, for me, our heart is our connection to our soul, which is the connection to all that is that love, that being that we are. And it's listen to that. And if you read something or hear something that really catches you right in the core of your being, that is telling you this is a truth for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes, for me, I use the term beliefs and knowings. A belief can move from a belief is something that somebody else has told you. This is how you believe. You must. I was brought up as a Catholic as well, as you can imagine, and I was told you must believe. You must believe, and I found that very difficult to must believe. How do I believe something that I really don't believe? But when I moved from believing in God to knowing God, or whatever you want to call source, rather than saying, "Oh, well, I think I believe." I have because beliefs can change, knowings don't change. It's like the love you have for your children. It's unconditional. So
I was very, very, very fortunate, really fortunate, because after I started connecting, excuse me, I'm clearing my glasses now. I had an experience, and I wasn't expecting it. Of course, I was going to do a very brief meditation before going out. So, and I almost said to Spirit, "This is quick. This is a quickie." Because if you tell them it's a quickie, they make it short.
Yes.
But then I had this most amazing feeling coming from inside me, absolute love. But it was love that was being loved by everything, being loved by God. It was ecstatic. It was exquisite. It was something I'd never wanted to end. It was amazing. And I didn't want it to finish. Of course it did. Yeah. It took me a week to get over that. I couldn't stand up afterwards. It was that powerful. When you have that sort of experience, there's no doubt in your mind that there is something far greater than anything else.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, I literally could not stand up afterwards. And everybody said I was glowing for a whole week. Yeah. I was at work and my boss said, "Oh, who's got a new boyfriend then?" I said, "I haven't." He said, "Nobody looks like that if they haven't got a new boyfriend." So it was obvious, it just left me with this huge glow. Wonderful.
Yeah.
But then you were connected with the perfect being that you are.
Yeah. It was, I would love to have it again.
You will.
I didn't want, well, I will when I pass over, yeah.
Have you ever had an experience like that, Sarah?
Not like that, but a few years back, I used to work with a young gentleman with learning difficulties. And sadly, the films he always wanted to go and see, and I did it for 5 years, for crying out loud, going to see films I would never have dreamt of going to see. But I was connecting at that time with many mythical beings.
Yeah.
And one of those I knew was going to be the werewolf. And I also knew there was nothing to fear, nothing to fear. And the film he'd chosen to see this particular time was called Man-Wolf, where the Old English word for man. So werewolf. So it was so obvious what it was going to be about. Yeah. We were sat in the cinema, and there was one particular scene that came on, and I knew what was going to happen, and I knew I couldn't watch it because it just really wasn't my thing. And I hadn't at that point connected with the werewolf, but I thought, okay, fine. And I invited the werewolf in because I was feeling so uncomfortable. Oh. And I am not joking. The sense of peace and calm that descended over me was beautiful. Mm-hmm. So if you think you've got something to be aware of, any of the mythical beings, no, they are all our friends. It's just as they said to me, don't share our myth and legend. Many of them have been distorted to create fear. Mm-hmm. I also became aware of 3 wolves with me. Now, I've been a trainee handler at the UK Wolf Conservation Trust, and the 3 wolves that were with me were Kodiak, Kenai, and Alba, 3 of the wolves that were no longer in the physical, but they were right there with me. And I'd met them in the physical. Yes. I'd had the experience of their beautiful energies in the physical. And when the werewolf wanted to give me the message right there and then, and it was really sorry, dark cinema, no pen and paper. I promise I'll sit down with you tomorrow. So he waited. But, sort of the energies were just so amazing. Just to be, and the werewolf said, we've all been given our own guardian wolf. It's just that I happen to have 3.
Yeah, look at you.
So what about you, Bill?
I've had well, going way back, when my first marriage broke up, I was in a very bad place. I don't know whether I was riddled with guilt, but I was in a place of despair because I really didn't know what was next, or I couldn't see what was next. That was the time I worked as an engineer, as an aircraft engineer, and I just couldn't see a future at all. It was like I was really at the suicidal point of what's the point of this? This is going nowhere. I couldn't see myself ever having a home again. I couldn't see myself ever having money again because I was giving all that I had to my ex. And I was sitting in a car with a friend one night, feeling absolutely out. I mean, out of it. I was really just ready to finish it. And a voice came in my ear, into my left ear, very clear, a woman's voice, very, very clear, saying, "You were only growing up, Bill." And I just couldn't believe, it was like, what? And I turned to this friend of mine. I said, what did you say? And she said, I haven't spoken. What do you mean? I said, but you just said something. She said, I haven't spoken for the last 20 minutes. I got this surge of, I mean, Shirley was talking about this surge of love or whatever that feeling was. And I said to her, right, here you go home. I'm going home. And the whole depression, anxiety, the whole thing lifted completely. And I drove down the road. Shirley said she couldn't walk. I was on fire. I was like, I didn't need a car to go home. I was
crying.
I could have flown home. But it was that feeling of wow. And the feeling had gone, that depression had gone. And I just felt fantastic. And I knew from that, well, one was I wasn't on my own. That was clear as a bell that I wasn't. I think I just probably felt that I was somewhat on my own. I had done the wrong thing, and my marriage had broken down, and I was guilty of all of that. And it just went. All of that went, and I thought I've come to terms with this, and now it's time for me to move on. So I moved, and from then on, it just changed. Everything changed. And I was amazed how my life then changed. When I look back in it now on the things that I've done and things that I haven't done, or I should have done, as they say. I don't have any regrets about any of it now. Thank God. Thank God. I'm blessed that I have I haven't got a wealthy life, but I've got a life that I'm very happy with. It's very simple, and it works. So yeah.
What could you want, really?
Indeed, yeah. I have my health pretty much, and as I say, I've got a lovely wife, as we all know, who's not a million miles from here, so I better be careful what I'm saying.
She'll be listening.
No, but we get on really well, and we have our ups and downs like everyone. But we really enjoy and appreciate. I mean, I close my eyes every night in appreciation of what I have, and I'm grateful for all of it. Thank goodness, the good and the bad and the ugly, as they say. So I'm blessed. I feel blessed, at least. Yeah.
And I think we feel that. But Shirley, reincarnation or multiple incarnations. So because you talked about and about the fact that we have those and how they can facilitate the journey we are on in this lifetime.
Well, I do believe, and I don't know if you believe this, but we've all got spirit helpers. We're not alone. I mean, they're all around us, helping us whenever we let them. And I do believe that my spirit helpers removed my second husband from my life because it was stopping me from doing what was intended. I mean, I loved him dearly, but they removed him. And I realize this now. He would have been bad for me. I wouldn't have done what I'm doing now had we remained together. So while it was painful, I do believe they orchestrate certain events so that you can follow the path, the pattern that you have planned somewhere. But multiple lives, and I do something called soul readings, which I do in trance. And people come and spirit come in, while I'm in trance, and they tell each individual in turn where they come from, what their past lives were, and what the thread is that they're on in this current incarnation. Because there's other threads from the oversoul, from the main core, all living different lives. But of course, we can only manage one life at a time, and we'd be nutcases if we had more than at once. I mean, some people might be called schizophrenic if they tapped into all the others.
Yeah.
So we're currently, as we know, just living one lifetime, incarnation after incarnation. But there's a thread. That's what I've learned with these soul readings, because remember, there's channeled. When you start a thread from the oversoul, there's a theme. For example, if you were Einstein, I choose somebody everybody knows, Einstein. His next incarnations and so on would all be with the science, because that's the thread that runs through. Right now, supposing there was an artist, I'm choosing the extremes here. Their next incarnations, they'd want to follow that thread, so they would always follow the artistic thread. That is just one thread from the oversoul. But there'd be other yous, other parts of that oversoul doing different things. So that's multiple lives in a way. Do you see?
Yeah.
But you learn what you need to learn in that one thread. You have various incarnations, so you do the job well. And you go back to the oversoul. But it's never ending. I mean, there's so many. And of course, we got timelines as well. It gets very, very complicated. Does that help you understand about different lives?
I think there's. Would I be right in assuming that that time, as we know it, is only a concept that we
Yeah.
have created. So
It's created to help us.
it's not like you do this and then you do that and then you do that.
Yeah.
It seems to me, and that's the bit I think we find difficult to understand.
We find it difficult, yeah.
To think that, well, how come it's all, if you like, happening all at once? Because the concept of time is something that we made up as in order to have some order into our understanding of life. Yeah. But what about what do you feel then about people who were evil in previous? I mean, the Hitlers of the world, who have passed on. Do they come back as evil people, or have we got another one in Russia?
I really don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know. I mean, I do believe there was evil.
Yeah.
And there's always a constant battle between the good and the bad.
Yeah.
But I'm not knowledgeable enough to be able to talk.
Yeah, because I often wonder about people. I mean, just talking about. I mean, we look at the news and see Putin and the things that he's saying and doing, but he on some level, he must believe that he's right. That he doesn't think. I don't know, but I don't think he thinks he's evil. We look at it and think, how could some human being do that to another human being? But he seems to have some sort of reasoning for doing that.
Yeah. Well, I did a psychology course once. And I always remember the saying, Plato, I think it was Plato said, or somebody, some philosopher said, nobody knowingly does evil. And I thought, well, yeah, but they don't, because even those who do the most evil things justify it from their point of view. That's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
They see it as doing good from their perspective. So they're not regarding it as evil.
So it's a judgment.
I understand a bit more.
It's a judgment, isn't it?
It's a judgment. It's how they see it. Because remember the words, nobody knowingly does evil.
Yeah, I think.
If you know you're doing evil, that's a different matter.
Yeah.
But not many people think that way. They do it because they think from their perspective that's the right thing to do.
And that's all about culture and upbringing and all sorts of different things, isn't it?
Oh, so much comes into that, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're somebody that, let's just take swearing, so that we're not judging anybody. But if you grow up in a household where there isn't any swearing, then it is going to be very alien to you, whatever age you are, to hear it. But if you grow up because when I was working with adults, the adults with learning difficulties, it was part of one of the courses that I did. And the story was about, I think it was a Down syndrome girl, and she got however many brothers and her father and then her mother. But it was a household which used an awful lot of swear words. And the day that she first came out with a swear word, they all cheered her because she was copying what was the norm within her own home.
Yeah.
And so then she started using it, which of course was very alien to so many people. And it's very difficult to understand. So I've used that, but obviously there are many, many different scenarios. If you watch somebody being abused as a child, your mother, whatever, it colours and taints the way you perceive life should be. And so if you grow up in a country that everybody carries guns, the States, they don't think twice about carrying a gun. But we don't come from a culture of carrying guns, sort of. So this is trying not to sort of say anything that might be too contentious, but it is. It's our upbringing. It's what we witness as children. It's not necessarily what's said to us. It's what we witness.
Yeah.
And I think about my second husband and how he was behaving, because we were together 11 years, but we were only married for 3.5. So, but bless him, his father was so intelligent. He'd retrained to be a teacher from being a salesman. And his mother, very simple soul, bless her, and she went out to earn a living by cleaning people's houses and doing people's ironing.
Mm.
And so the difference between them was actually quite a chasm.
Mm.
And therefore, from what I remember witnessing, he didn't speak to her that much. Once I got married to their son, suddenly he didn't think he had to talk to me. Now, it's only that understanding that has come in the last couple of years to me. And that marriage was over 20 years ago. So, but witnessing, if you witness what goes on in someone's family, you are going to have an understanding of what is likely to come.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Understand why people are the way they are. Look further back than their current.
It comes down to the nurture and nature thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It really does.
But I think it also comes down to making decisions within all of that, because if you think about, people who are brought up in a deprived background, two brothers brought up in a deprived background, one will follow the pattern, and the other fights to get out of it and becomes an doctor or a teacher or a professor or something. And yet you think, well, they're brought up in the same way, they've got the same influences, but I believe then that it's a decision that they make themselves on some level, whether it's conscious or unconscious, to say, this is not good enough for me, I am going to better myself from that. And the other brother doesn't even go that far, it doesn't have that consciousness, and it's not a judgment on the person, because everyone, who are we to judge? I mean, we can make opinions and think, oh my God, they should be better than that, but we have no idea what their thinking is and what decisions they've made, and regrettably, a lot of people don't make a decision and then regret not having made a decision, and I think a lot of life is making decisions, conscious decisions. I think that's what awakening is about, it's
all a learning process, isn't it?
Yeah.
Every life is a learning process.
Of course, yeah, we're only here to learn.
No, if we were perfect, we wouldn't be down here.
Yeah.
We'd stay on the other side.
Yeah. Oh, well, some of us are perfect. You know what I mean? There's
only you reckon?
only a few of us.
Nobody is perfect.
If only, Lord. Yeah, but it's interesting, because I worked as a therapist for 25 years, and one of the people come to me with this, I've had a bad background and my husband beat me up.
Oh, yeah.
All the usuals.
These are excuses.
Yeah, my first question was, so what did you learn from it? It's like, what do you mean, what did I learn from it? I say, well, that's what you were here for. That's what the experience was to teach you something. And if you don't learn from it, then you just carry on, doing the same lesson until you learn. Yeah, it's like people moving into relationships and they keep making the same mistake in the relationships until they learn. But you don't do it that way. You do it some way or other different, Yeah.
I think the most helpful piece of advice you can give anybody when things aren't going right is look for the pattern.
Yeah.
Look for the pattern that wasn't good. Mm. And once you see the pattern from previous experiences in your own life, then you can do something about it. I mean, I managed to avoid getting married to the wrong man by noticing a pattern that was definitely not one I wanted to repeat.
Yes, yeah.
And I actually said to him, I said, we ought to be running away from each other like mad. He said, yeah, I agree. But it was only because I noticed a pattern. Yeah. I was doing the same thing from a previous experience.
What you thought was the right thing to do, of course.
Yeah. But notice the pattern when it's not working.
Yeah. So can I just ask you, Shirley, before in case we run out of time, is at what stage of the, if you like, the journey of the soul do you think you are at the moment? Do you think you're at the end, towards the end of it, in the middle, or the beginning?
We're in the third dimension, aren't we?
Yeah.
Physically. There are 100, as far as I know, there's 144 dimensions.
Okay.
With each dimension, there's 12 levels. Right. Now, I do believe we're on the upper level of the third dimension, because the next one is fourth dimension. So we have a long. So what level stage am I at? I haven't got a clue. Seriously, I don't think it's for me to say. You see, I go on vibrations. When you are able to reach a higher level, you vibrate. Every atom physically vibrates faster.
Yeah.
And that means you can reach higher. Now, I have been known to disappear. Not deliberately, it just happens in broad daylight sometimes, which must mean that I'm vibrating on those periods much faster.
Yeah.
But then I come back down and I'm third dimension, so I don't know what level my soul is at.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even guess at it.
Where would you like to be?
Well, I'm very much in touch with the White Brotherhood. In fact, I have a pack of little owl cards which they have given me every message, 72 messages.
Yeah.
They are astounding. They're amazing cards. So I'd like to be with the White Brotherhood.
Right.
And what dimension are they? I don't know, but they deal with the planet Earth.
Yeah.
Their brief is the planet Earth. They're ascended masters, if you like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, what's that? Fifth, sixth, seventh? I'd
Yeah.
rather think it's more seventh than it is fifth dimension.
So
I'd like to rejoin with the White Brotherhood, please.
yeah. So you're saying there's 144 dimensions.
Yeah.
Only
12 levels in each.
at this time we're in the third one. So
We're in the third dimension.
Wow.
So we have a long way to go.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. Now, some people are already higher than the physical that they're in, third dimension.
Yeah.
On a soul level.
Have you?
And you can recognize these souls, can't you? And
Yeah.
they have chosen to be third dimensional to assist others who are still working their way up. I mean, guides can be seen simply because they have lowered their vibration enough to be seen.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean they're not from a much higher level. They
Yeah.
have deliberately brought themselves down so we can connect. But they could be much, much higher. But once you're up the top, you can move up and down, you see.
Yes.
But you can't move up or down when you're only on third and you haven't been to the others.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of a man from Cyprus called Stelios Ateshli?
No.
He was known as the Magus Australos. And I read about him in the 80s, 80s? Yeah, about in the middle of the 80s, I read about this book called the Magus Australos, and he was a magi. He was known to be a healer and a holy man, etc., living in Cyprus near Nicosia. And I was blown away with this book because when you read something and you think, really, can you do that? Is this possible? Is this all just fabrication? So I went to Cyprus, so kind of sought him out, as they say, and ended up in this village of Strovolos and found him. And we sat for hours talking.
Oh, lovely.
He was a fascinating man because he said to me that he could remember all his previous lives. He said it's the first lifetime that he could remember his previous lives. He also could leave his body at will. He was seen he was bilocating. He was seen in two places at the one time. Very, very powerful man. Very simple man. I mean, a very down to earth, ordinary man. I was expecting somebody to open the door with robes and long beard.
Yeah, they don't have to do that,
No, he just turned up in a shirt and a jumper on. I was like, oh. And I had to ask him who he was, and he asked me like, well, "Why are you here?" And the only answer was, "I don't know." I had nothing prepared. I should have, had some sort of thing prepared. So he said, "You better come in." So I went in and we sat in his front room talking for hours about all sorts of things, the things that I wanted, the questions we have about life and afterlife and so on. He was a fascinating man, He was telling me that he was. Why I'm thinking about him now is that he said to me that do you remember Skylab?
Yeah.
You remember, it must have been in the 70s, late 70s, this kind of satellite thing that was going around the Earth, and it was coming down. It was going to crash land on the Earth, and they had all these predictions as to where it was going to land. It was going to land in New York, and it was going to land in London, and all this, wreck the place. And I said to him, he said to me, "Do you remember Skylab?" I said, "I do. I remember reading about it." He said, "Well, when it was still in space," he said, I left my body and went to space to see what I could do to influence it, in some way. Was there something I could direct it so that it would land in the sea or in the ocean? And he said there were Tibetan monks up there. He said they were all around it. He said there were Tibetan monks, obviously in meditation. They had moved out of their bodies. But he said what was more interesting to me, he said, was that there were other beings there.
Yeah.
I couldn't see them.
Yeah.
And I thought, you're seeing them, you're experiencing them.
Yeah.
They're on a higher vibration even from where he was.
Yeah.
But he said so he said, I don't know who they were or where they were from, but he said there were definitely other beings.
Yeah.
And of course it fell into the sea.
Yeah.
Which I thought, well, that's not surprising.
I do believe we are protected from destroying ourselves.
Yeah.
By other beings.
I think
absolutely. If it wasn't for these other beings, Earth would have been damaged and goodness knows what else by now.
So, yeah.
We are being saved. The planet Earth is always going to be saved.
Yeah.
I don't know about the human race, but that isn't restricted to the planet Earth.
Yeah.
The human race is elsewhere in the cosmos as well. So we're never going to be done away with. Whether we stay on the planet Earth is our choice, but it won't be the end of us.
Do you believe that there are other human beings on other planets around the universe?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, I absolutely do.
Yeah, I know. I do believe that there is life, but I've often questioned whether everybody, humanoid, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Completely and absolutely, no question. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we'll talk for another time because it's a big subject.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's go back to our soul and the soul journey, because and I know to a certain degree we are very much talking about that, but it may not feel like that to some people, because different people believe different things, and obviously you come from it from a perspective of your understanding and what you're being told by guides and guardians. Sort of there's an aspect of me that very much feel, but from me reading Neil Donald Walsh's Conversations with God, is that we choose the physical experiences that we have before we come here. And if we've chosen certain things, nobody can take that away from us because our soul has chosen that experience. Yeah. So your two marriages, my two marriages, Bill's two marriages, sort of, but mine are both over as well. I'm pleased yours and Patricia's isn't. We have these experiences. You sort of talked about your second husband being taken away from you, sort of that being facilitated. And I think maybe to a certain degree, yes, the same thing happened with me in a very peculiar way. That was all part of my wake-up call. That eventually I came out of a marriage I shouldn't be in any longer, but then actually he shouldn't have been there either. He's moved on and his life has changed just as mine has. My life couldn't be what it is now if we'd stayed together. And that's exactly what you said. And Bill, if you'd have stayed with your first wife, the experiences you've had since, you wouldn't have had.
Wouldn't have been gone near. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's all planned. This was all set out before we even came.
Yeah.
Yeah. Part of it. That we don't have to understand on a human level. We don't have to understand what it is, but just to know, if you like.
You see, if we understood at the outset, it would be like being given the answers to an exam before you take the exam.
How interesting would that be? Yeah. That's...
Oh, this is what you're going to do, but you'll forget that this is what you were going to do. And let's see how you deal with this one.
Yeah.
Soul development.
Yeah. I remember, I was in a relationship some time ago, 40 years ago probably. And I was never comfortable in the 100% comfortable in the relationship. It was okay. You know what I mean? It wasn't that it was a bad relationship. But the moment that I stopped the relationship, like literally the moment, I just suddenly felt free. I felt like I could breathe, you know, and I knew it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Everyone around me, family included, were pointing the finger. What did you do that for? What a thing to do. That was a disgrace. And some of my family refused to speak to me even because I had ended that relationship, even though they weren't related to this lady, but they thought, oh, you've done something wrong. But in my heart, I knew it was the right thing to do. It was so liberating, you know, to do it that way. And I know what you mean when you've taken a step that's definitely in the right direction, rather than hoping you're in the right direction, you know. Yeah.
And it's very, very much a matter, isn't it? There are times when the universe supports us and takes something away from us. And there are other times we are really, so we make that gap, we make that space for something new to come in because it's waiting to come in. But there are other times when we are very definitely, we are being encouraged to do the letting go so that we make the space for what is waiting to come in.
Yeah.
So it's what one of you was saying a bit earlier about, I use the term sitting on the fence. You don't make a decision. Well, when you're not making a decision, you are making a decision. I think it was you, Bill, wasn't it? And you regret later that you didn't make, you did make a choice, but you didn't. You just allowed whatever was happening.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And you weren't in control of that.
I think we've all done that. I mean, I allowed too much in my first marriage, which caused the end of the marriage. Had I stood up and shouted and done something about it, we might never have finished that marriage. But it was all meant to be. It's all learning. It's not the end of the world, you know. That's
right. There is no end to the world. Yeah, I have a kind of an image of lifetimes, like similar to. Do you remember these plastic curtains they used to have in chip shops, where they go from one room to another? They had a plastic curtain they pushed to get through. But my philosophy is that, like, this life is one of the threads, one of these strips of plastic. But our lifetime is made up of masses of these strips.
Yeah, absolutely.
That makes up the whole curtain, basically. Yeah. So that's what I think is what's happening in our lives at the moment. Is that we live a life, and it depends on how exciting you want to make it.
Yeah, our soul has made choices. It wishes to experience itself in our experiences, and so that it can grow. And yes, and it's up to us, each and every one of us. We can either go into that, you know, as you did, that sort of almost depression mode, or it can be, okay, fine, I've had that experience, it's over. What can I take from this? You know, and I can look back, and we can always look back and we can see that happened because that needed to happen, because that needed to happen, because that needed to happen. It's all part of the journey. But if that first thing hadn't happened, for me, it was the broken jaw, the 6 months of pain and sleepless nights, which was then resulted in the end of the marriage, because the energies and the whatever. Anyway, but that needed to happen for me to finish the marriage, for me to be able to then take the next steps.
That's what Shirley was saying as well. You were saying that too, Shirley, that if certain things didn't happen in your younger life, you wouldn't be where you are now.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's all planned.
Yeah.
Some things have to happen.
Yeah. Can I just ask you, that Shirley, with all your travels around the world, and you must have spoken to thousands of people, what kind of reaction did you get from people? Was it a fear, or was there an acceptance, or what do you think? I know you were probably mixed.
It depends where I'm going and why I'm going. I found I was accepted everywhere.
Mm.
In fact, it was even more than that, because I might end up in one person's house that I never knew before, always had a bed, and then I'd meet somebody else and they'd say, "Oh, would you come and stay with me for a week?" And I was passed around like a parcel. So it was absolute acceptance. In fact, I experienced so much more by not doing a tour, an organized tour, because then you've got to do whatever's going on.
Follow on.
So I never knew what was coming next.
Yeah.
It's particularly true in Canada. When I went to Calgary, I didn't know anybody in Calgary. Spirit said I had to go. They actually showed me a map, put the finger on Calgary. Right. So I knew I had to go to Calgary. And within the first day, I was at a spiritualist church. They'd organized readings. They'd organized me doing workshops. And I had a bed to stay in, and I got passed around like a parcel. Wow. All from not knowing a single person there.
Yeah.
Do you see? Yeah. So it's acceptance, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
To answer your question.
Yeah, but did you get a lot of resistance to your message, if you know what I mean? To use the word message.
Once.
Yeah.
Once I did, in a place called Mudgee in Australia. I mean, what a name.
Yeah.
I was doing a tour all the way up the east coast of Australia, and it was a 3-month tour from place to place every single week.
Yeah.
And I ended up this place called Mudgee. It was organized, somebody else was organizing it.
Yeah.
And it was like working through treacle.
Wow.
It was hard going. And I was giving this talk, and I was heckled. When you actually saw the place, it was like the Wild West, and you felt lynch mobs were about. It was that sort of feeling. Yeah. Anyway, while I was doing the talk, this lady turned up, and she said Spirit had told her to come down to this talk to protect me. She said, "Shirley, they are openly praying against me in the streets," because she was a psychic and they didn't like that. It was real lynch mob type country. So that I had resistance. I did the talk, I got through the talk, and the audience said, "Oh, are you going to come back?" I said, "No, I'm never coming back." But that's the one and only time I have had resistance.
Yeah.
That was heavy going.
Yeah.
But that's unusual.
Yeah, that was a challenge, wasn't it?
I have worked in mafia black energies. I'm not myself in them, but I've been taken to those areas with a specific, and I've been told what to do by Spirit. And it was specifically to clear the energies, to change the energies. And I was told exactly what to do. And they said to me openly, they said, "We have taken you into dark places as before, and we have never let you down. You know this to be so." And it's true, they take me into heavy, dark places. 2 angels turn up. So I know I'm okay. The 2 angels, big angels, are there. And I change the energies. So, yes, to answer your question, I have gone into resistance areas.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm
still here.
I think it's really important to realize that it's important for us to speak from our heart and to speak our truth, because we will touch a life. And the way I've sort of put it, a friend of mine one time said to me, "Sarah, you can't talk to people like that." And I said, "Yes, I can." So I can't remember. He overheard a conversation at an affair and an event, because my reaction is, if somebody hears what I have to say, and if in a week, a month, a year, 10 years, they suddenly say, "That funny woman that day at that event said that to me." Yeah. If you have something come at you 3 times, pay attention. And somebody's got to be the first the second, and the third. If I hold back, and I remember after one event, my phone rang and this voice on the other end of the phone said, "I was so angry with you." And I thought, oh, right. And she said, and I went away and thought about it, and you're the only person who's been honest with me.
Yeah.
So it's having that belief in yourself, in the gift that you bring, that your soul knows what other people, you're there to, as part of that other person's facilitation of their next step.
Yes, yeah. And we don't always know our role in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Never hold back.
I taught a load of Italian professors and what have you once. They were going to Brussels for meetings and things. They were that level. And my role was to teach them how to be diplomatic, because Italians are not diplomats generally. We had a wonderful time. But I taught them how to answer a question without answering it. I mean, that's politicians, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we had such fun. But what I'm saying is, you can say what you have to say clearly, but you have to use a diplomatic way of doing it so that you get it over, but it's received because of the way you put it.
Yeah.
That is a skill I learned in Italy.
I worked with a guy when I worked in Aer Lingus. I worked with a chap from County Kerry, which is over in the southwest of Ireland.
That's right.
Rural County Kerry. And I said to him one day, I said, I believe that is it true that Kerrymen will only answer a question with another question? He turned to me and said, "Who told you that?"
Yeah.
I thought, that's about the size of it, all right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You answered my question. I'm hearing my fire crackling in the background.
Yes, I can.
I'm thinking, am I going to get sparks flying at me here? But I'm
no, exactly. We are coming so close to time.
Oh yes. Yeah.
So thank you so much both. But Shirley, our conversation has been all over the place, which I think has been beautiful, and it was obviously totally what was required for this. But is there anything that you feel we maybe haven't touched on that you would like to sort of finish on?
Oh, there's so much. I could go on for hours on that subject. I'd like to remind people I have written 9 books. And if they buy any of my books, you can get them from Amazon. Please write a review. Because, it's the reviews that sell them after all. That's a commercial side, all right. But never be fearful of death. Never, ever. I mean, it's brilliant on the other side, but don't go popping off yet, because, you've got to do your bit here.
Yes.
But never be fearful. I mean, I can hardly wait. I mean, it's going to happen to me sooner than it's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
I've got 2 cancers right the way through my body, so it's going to get me at some point, isn't it? But I'm not worried. I'm looking forward to it, actually. Yeah. I don't want to leave my family, obviously. I mean, that's natural. But all my friends, all my life, really. But it's good on the other side. Oh, yeah. And I look forward to meeting all my loved ones who've already gone over. I'm looking forward to the meet and greet.
Oh, so Shirley and Bill, thank you, because this has been a wonderful conversation, and I hope that it is. We've had people watching, but they've obviously been enjoying watching because they're kept very quiet. So thank you so much for this. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, well, I've enjoyed myself.
Good, you'll be taking over from Patricia.
I might have her in the next time.
Well, good my love to Patricia, and hope her mouth feels better soon.
I'm sure it will, yes, indeed.
Oh, bless. Next week, I'm being joined by Dale Goldstein. He's going to be sharing about heart work. And then on the next Today's Conversation program, which is the following week, reboot your cells and upgrade your life with the power of sound. Now, sound is very definitely something that I'm very interested in. So, but I hope that, and that's Joanne Bracken. I really do hope that you will join us for those. There is so much more. giftofhealingtv.com. This is going to be on there under today's conversation. There is so much more on the website. It's all free, folks. Take care, be safe, stay well, and thank you to Shirley and Bill. It has been a real pleasure, and I hope Patricia's feeling well soon. Namaste, sweet souls.
God bless. Bye-bye.
God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.